All right. Now, I want to talk about some of the new discoveries that have been happening, especially in the realm of Egyptology, right? And this is something that a lot of people know about thanks to Netflix, The Secrets of the Saqqara Tomb. And there was a Netflix documentary on it. And for those who aren't familiar, and correct me if I'm wrong, Harsh, this is a 4,400-year-old tomb, and it's completely intact, which is apparently very rare. And I think one of your mentors, Dr. Salima Ikram, was working on this project as well. Now, I want to understand, why is an intact tomb rare? How does one know where a tomb could be? And if we know that a complex can have X number of tombs, what's stopping us from just opening it all up?
Well, the documentary itself, it was interesting.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because for the first time we discovered lion cub mummies.
Yes.
So it was very uncommon for Egyptologists to find such lion mummies in Egyptian complexes. We find cat mummies, we find dog mummies, we find a variety of animal mummies, but it was for the first time we discovered lion cub mummies. Because lion was actually a representation of the ancient Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, who was the goddess of medicine, she was the goddess of war. So, two or three goddesses, they are related to the lion. So, they have a lion head in Egyptian iconography. The three questions as to how the tombs are traced, why such complexes aren't exposed to the full, and then third, what makes it unique for that tomb particularly that was covered by Netflix. So first of all, when we find a tomb, it is basically accidental. Most of the archaeological discoveries have been accidental. Some farmer would have been traveling with a donkey. The donkey would be walking around, and then suddenly the leg of the donkey, it gets stuck in something. And then when the farmer tries to retrieve it, he finds something. So, most of the discoveries, they happen this way. And then you have the modern scientific techniques. So we use the GIS or the geophysical surveys for tracing the tombs. We have lots of photographic analysis. So we do the drone survey, we do the aerial photography, and we can trace it because, it's whole desert. Talking about especially Egypt, India is very difficult to trace because you have lots of habitations and it's lushy green. The landscapes change very well. But in Egypt, you have the desert. So the desert is very easy to trace the monuments. It's very easy to trace the tombs. It's very easy to trace the buried buildings from the sands. So it is how the tombs are traced and then they are excavated. But we need to understand that even today, our archaeological techniques are not that much competent. Obviously, it has to be that in the future, say 100 years or 200 years later, it would be much more developed. So what we do is that we leave it for the future archaeologists, because by the time they would have better techniques, they would be able to use it better for understanding in a better way about the lives of the people who built them. So we excavate a part of the site for our own benefit, for our own use, for our own times. So we don't or we can't expose the entire site because that will lead to the degradation of the entire context, the stability or the integrity of the site. So we do a bit, we take a part and then we excavate it, and we come to know about the extent of the site through that simple excavation. We do a sampling from an entire specimen. You cannot just use this entire specimen for the test. You take a sample.
Right.
So it is very much like the same.
Okay.
And that tomb was very unique because in Saqqara, I talked about the lion cub mummy. It was also a part of that uniqueness.
Right.
But the best part of the tomb was that the colors were intact. And the information from the tomb, it was very much intact. You can talk about the relatives of the dead person for whom that tomb was made. You can talk about the gods and the goddesses that were worshipped during that time. You can talk about the technologies, the way the tomb was built, the location of the tomb itself, in proximity to some of the best pyramids, that are there in Saqqara. So we come to know about the history of administration because I think that person to whom the tomb belonged, he was an administrator in ancient Egypt.
Right.
So we get to know about the varieties of information, his wife, his sons and daughters, his family, his mother and father. So obviously it is very much, a goose bumping thing to learn about something like this.